The impact of Brexit on the UK population is, of course, a complex and multifaceted issue. There are many negative impacts, and the ultimate effects will likely depend on a variety of factors, including the terms of future agreements with the EU and the relationship and the economic and political climate in the UK. One of the most immediate impacts of Brexit has been on migration. Since the referendum, there has been a significant decline in the number of EU citizens coming to work in the UK. I already talked this in recent days. And this has led to labour shortages in some sectors such as healthcare and social care. And it has also put upward pressure on wages as businesses compete for a smaller pool of workers. The decline in migration from the EU is having a number of other impacts on the UK population. For example, it's expected to lead to an aging population as there will be fewer young people entering the workforce. And this will put a strain on public finances as the government will need to spend more on pensions and healthcare. But Brexit is also having a negative impact on the UK economy. The UK is a relatively open economy and it's heavily reliant on trade with the EU. The loss of tariff-free access to the EU market will make it more difficult for UK businesses to export their goods and services. And this will lead to job losses and a decline in economic growth. There are some tariffs still, although the rest is tariff-free, but there are new tariffs, especially on services. And Brexit is making it more difficult for UK businesses to attract investments from overseas. This is because the UK will no longer be part of the EU single market, or still isn't, which is a major hub for investment. Some people say there are some potential benefits for Brexit. For example, that the UK will be able to control its own borders and immigration policy, which is bollocks. And they say this will lead to a reduction in the number of low-skilled workers coming to the UK, and which could benefit some workers in the UK. We know that the opposite has happened. In addition, the UK would also be able to negotiate its own trade deals with other countries, and this could lead to new opportunities for UK businesses to export their goods and services. Talk about this later again. The impact of Brexit on the UK population is not good, and there are a lot of negative impacts we see, and the ultimate effects, as I said, will depend on a variety of sectors. And we definitely will monitor the situation on this channel and assess the impact of Brexit the more and more it unfolds. But I want to give you some more details here. For example, the labor market. The decline in the EU migration led to labor shortages, and not only in healthcare and social care. I talked about construction, hospitality, and so on. And that's why the wages got up and the services got down. And that is not a good thing. And if somebody calls that a Brexit benefit, yay. And the economy is not doing well since Brexit either. And not only because there are a few tariffs, especially on services, and there's now slower productivity and productivity growth because it got more isolated. And the loss of access to the EU single market, as I said, really put down the investments in the UK. And this, of course, leads to slower economic growth and with that, job losses, with all the open jobs, of course, not visible. And the aging population and the decline in economic growth are putting a strain on public finances. The government will need to spend more on pensions and healthcare, but they also have to raise taxes or cutting spending in other areas. And Brexit led to increased social division in the UK. There is already a deep divide between those who voted to leave the EU and those who voted to remain. And this divide is likely to be exacerbated by the economic and social impacts of Brexit. The full impact of Brexit on the UK population will not be known for many years to come, because there still is a lot going to happen. But it's clear that it's a significant impact on economy, society, and politics. And we had this take back control of our borders. The UK has not regained control of its borders the way it was promised. In fact, immigration even increased. And by the way, the UK always had control of its borders while being in the EU. And immigration has not decreased significantly as promised since Brexit. In fact, it has increased in a lot of sectors. And the UK is projected to lose billions of pounds each year as a result of Brexit. And let's talk about the trade deals again. The UK has yet to negotiate any major trade deals with other countries, and especially the promised USA deal is a distant dream. And the UK economy has weakened since Brexit. The pound has fallen in value, and businesses have become more cautious about investing. And there have been even job losses in some sectors, such as manufacturing, as a result of Brexit. And the UK has not reduced regulation significantly since Brexit is promised. In some cases, regulation has actually increased. You won't believe this. But they also promised to make the UK a more competitive place to do business. Yeah, that didn't happen either. But they also wanted to give the UK more control over its laws. Well, they have kept most EU laws. And they haven't restored sovereignty because you can't restore something that you have never lost. They always had sovereignty as an EU member. As you can see, the promises of the Brexiteers have not been met in reality. The UK has not regained control of its borders, reduced immigration, saved money, made trade deals with other countries, strengthened the economy, protected jobs, reduced regulation, and made the UK a more competitive place to do business, giving the UK more control of its laws and restore the sovereignty of the UK. Just a quick recap. In fact, the opposite has happened in some cases. Yeah, as I said, immigration has increased in some sectors. The economy has weakened and regulation has actually increased. It is still too early to say what the long-term impact of Brexit will be. But it is clear that the promises made by the Brexiteers have not been met by reality. The full Brexit can still not be felt anyway because there are still transition periods in place. And I'll just give you a few examples. One example is euro clearing. The transition period on euro clearing that is still running between the UK and the EU is the temporary permissions regime, the TPR. The TPR allows UK-based clearinghouses to continue clearing euro-denominated derivatives for EU clients until June 25. And this is to give businesses and regulators time to prepare for the full separation of the UK and EU financial markets. The TPR is a temporary measure, and it's not clear what will happen after June 25. The UK and the EU are still negotiating a permanent solution for euro clearing, but it will definitely not stay in the UK as it is now. They will lose access to the EU market after the TPR ends. Euro clearing is the process of settling trades in euros, and it's a critical part of the European financial system, and it is estimated to be worth trillions of euros. The UK is a major center for euro clearing, and it's estimated that around 80% of euro-denominated derivatives are still cleared in London. But the UK's withdrawal from the EU has raised concerns about the future of euro clearing in London, because the EU has said that it wants to ensure that euro clearing remains in the EU, and it has proposed a number of measures to make this happen. The UK might have said that it's committed to maintaining London as a global center for euro clearing, but the EU is in advantage here. The future of euro clearing is still uncertain, but the TPR has provided a temporary solution that allows businesses and regulators to prepare for the full separation, and that will come. I will give you a few key points of what happened here. The TPR was introduced in December 2020 as part of the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, the TCA, between the UK and the EU. And it allows UK-based clearinghouses to continue clearing euro-denominated derivatives for EU clients until June 2025. It is a temporary measure, and it's not clear what happens then, but something will happen then. And they are still negotiating the permanent solution for it, but it will end. And it will go back to the EU. That they were not doing their homeworks properly here is the reason for the discussions. But we also have the rules of origin. The transition period on the rules of origin that is still running between the UK and the EU is the Rules of Origin Temporary Arrangements, the ROO. It allows goods that do not meet the full ROO requirements to be traded between the UK and the EU until December 31st in 2023. And this is to give businesses time to adjust to the new rules. The ROO are a set of rules that determine the origin of goods. They are used to determine whether goods are eligible for preferential tariffs under the TCA. In the case of the EU-UK Trade and Cooperation Agreement, the TCA, goods must meet the ROO in order to qualify for zero tariffs. And the ROO temporary arrangement allows goods that do not meet the full ROO requirements to be traded between the UK and the EU if they meet certain conditions. And those are, for example, that the goods must be transported directly from the UK to the EU or vice versa. The goods must be accompanied by a certificate of origin, and the goods must be declared to customs in the UK or the EU. And as I said, the ROO temporary arrangement is a temporary measure, and something will happen after December 31st in 23 as well. The UK and the EU are still negotiating a permanent solution, or the businesses are demanding a change there, but I don't really see this. As I said, this temporary arrangement was introduced in December 2020 as a part of the TCA. And the most common example we were talking about in the past was electric cars. And the batteries usually not coming from the UK or the EU in the past. And they make a big part of the price of the vehicle. But even if businesses on both sides demand an extension here, I do not see an extension. But in the topic of this video, it's important that these transition periods are still here while we are talking. And there are more topics that will undergo changes due to Brexit in the future, so that we still don't see the full impact of Brexit yet. There is indeed more trouble ahead. And if some case, I'm using the words as well in my videos with Brexit means Brexit or welcome to the Brexit, sir. And they're indeed not absolutely correct, because Brexit means Brexit is true, but not for now, because we still not have seen what Brexit fully means because of all the things I talked about in this video. And welcome to the Brexit, sir, is the quote from the famous Dutch border guard and because of the sandwich. But it would be correct to say welcome to the beginning of Brexit, sir, because we have not even seen the full impact. Not everything is introduced. Not to mention that I am already hearing again that the UK government wants to postpone the checks of goods on the British side for even longer than I talked about in one of my recent videos. So there's a lot on the prices in the supermarkets and everywhere else that you don't see in the UK yet because of those checks not happening. And when they are finally introduced someday, I mean, the EU introduced them on day one, of course, because they are taking control of their borders. The UK still hasn't 3 years after Brexit. And the prices will go up for all the imported goods because the costs will go up and the bureaucracy will go up. But the main point of my video here was we still don't see the full impact. The worst is yet to come. I usually like the song "The Best Is Yet to Come," but in this case, the worst is yet to come. And Project Fear turned already into Project Reality, but not into Project Full Reality, because there's a lot coming our way still, and especially the way of the UK population. And if you're interested in more videos right now, the next one is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.